Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to AWB's first official live stream. Super excited about this. Definitely a first for me as well, which is pretty rad. Super excited to be here today. Super excited to have you guys here today as well. So super keen to see who all jumps on the stream today. And yeah, man, super excited for a little celebration stream. Get 10,000 subs. That's honestly was a pipe dream like a year and a half, a year ago. For real, this is actually insane. The fact that it's come this far. So yeah, dude, exciting stuff. So I think a little bit about today. I'd love to just give you guys a little bit of like about the channel, where it's going, how it got started, kind of a little bit about everything. Basically everything about the channel and what's going on and where it's headed and how it came about and all the interesting stuff, the ins and outs of like what it actually has taken to kind of get here as well, I think. And then also just kind of getting to know you guys a little bit as well. So once you guys are on here, jump into the chat and let me know if you guys are here, if you can hear me good. And yeah, as well, where you guys are from, man. I think that's another big thing. It's super interesting for me kind of seeing where the audience has been and like from all over the show. So it's quite an interesting one, like seeing where people are watching from as well. That's been a super interesting one because it's quite a diverse, like all over the world. So it's not just been people are watching not just from South Africa, which is where I'm from, but all over the world. Like my biggest market is the US, UK, a lot of peeps from there. A lot of Europeans as well. Like India is also another big one as well. Shout out to everyone in India, man. Like proper support from there, which is cool. So yeah, super excited to kind of share this a little bit with you guys, and yeah, get it going. If you guys have got any questions throughout the chat as well, please feel free to dive in there and just let me know, and we'll go from there. Eugene, welcome. Thanks for being here, dude. This is super exciting. Cape Town, shout out, and more specifically Brackenfell, but it is what it is. And yeah, man. So I think I'm also super excited. Like LEATT MTB. Shout out to them. They sponsored a pair of gloves for today. We popping those off for a prize later. So I'll do a little bit of a giveaway. So when you guys are, I'll probably pop that in a little bit later down the line, and we'll do a giveaway live on the stream as well. So we'll hook it up, see who wins. I'll run that a little bit later. But yeah, so basically, guys, I want to start with kind of where the channel sort of came from and like how it kind of got started, and well, I think we'll take it from there. So AWB was something that formed a little while ago. Like I used to race a bunch of downhill back in the day. That was kind of my origins. I remember starting out riding, and like we went on holiday the one time, and I had a good friend of mine and their family, the two, the father and the son, were real big into riding, and they invited me to come with to go dirt jumping one day. They've just built like this one or two jumps, and they were like, "Do you want to come with and just come like see what it's about and like experience it and kind of see what mountain biking is about?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure, that sounds pretty rad." So anyway, we ended up heading out and going for a bit of a ride, and so I kind of tagged along, and I had a pretty old bike at the time, and these guys had like these nice dirt jump bikes, and they just gotten these dirt jump bikes, and they were sort of like getting into the scene of like being able to start digging and building some jumps and actually riding them a little bit as well. So I was like, I had no idea what like mountain biking and free ride was. I was like, mountain biking is just you get on a bike and you ride down like Jeep track kind of thing. So anyway, we ended up going to these jumps that they built, and from that day I remember seeing them hit these jumps, and I was like, that is what I want to do. And we ended up going back to their place that night and ended up watching one of a free ride movie. I think it was one of the early New World Disorder movies. And again, that just kind of instilled my love for mountain biking, man. It was super cool. I knew kind of from the get-go that like that was what I wanted to do. And it was just like, to be honest, it was a calling in life, which was also pretty unique. I dropped everything. I was skateboarding at the time. I had zero interest in other like school sports. I had no interest in like track running and swimming and all those sort of things that school offers, in rugby and all the rest. And like I ended up getting into mountain biking, and initially it was downhill. So much to my parents' dismay, because you could pick an easy sport and do like marathon, one of those kind of easier ones to get into. But like downhill was a relatively hard barrier to entry. especially in like the South African scene, it wasn't a big thing. We don't have lifts. We don't have like a lot of those like cool things that like a lot of the people in Europe and the States have. You know, we never had lift access, and like even just getting the bikes was also quite a hard thing to do. Like it wasn't an easy thing to get a hold of a downhill bike. So it was kind of, you had to get via, you had to kind of figure out like, you know, if somebody had one or you'd heard of one that somebody was selling, it was, could you get a hold of that, you know, kind of thing. It wasn't like there was free access. And I know Pink Bike was big in the States, and they had like buy and sell forums, and I was always on there like trolling the internet and being like, oh man, look at all these sweet bikes for sale in the US. And I was always like so envious. I was like, man, I wish I could get one of those bikes here. And I mean, we just kind of had to like pick and choose what we could get. Like somebody had an import from somewhere, and they were like, I'm going to sell that. And that was kind of, you know, what you could get your hands on. So I remember the first downhill bike I ever got was an old Vintana. I don't even know if you guys know that brand or not. And it was like pretty janky and old school, but it did a great job. It was like a pretty burly, hard bike. Like it lasted me a fairly long time. I ringed a lot of the components before anything else on the bike. Like the frame did super well, and it was also like kind of a make a plan between what parts you could get. And I also grew up in a town that was pretty flat. So when I kind of got into mountain biking, I was in high school, and so I think, you know, a lot of people probably have a pretty similar journey as well, man. Like I ended up having the downhill bike, and I was like, I want to go like jump, and like I didn't have any jumps and stuff. Or I didn't have any downhill tracks near me, so I ended up building like a whole bunch of jumps, and it was in my hometown. Like I was known as the dude who built all the jumps, and my jumps were called the Flay. And dude, I used to go there and just have an absolute blast. Like that would be my afternoon. I'd get home from school, and like if I didn't have to do school sports, I was there even sooner. Like I'd get home, make my sandwich at home, and like before you knew it, like I was out the door. Mum was like barely even saying hi, and I was like out the door down to the Flay, swinging the spade, getting the jumps built, and kind of, you know, just having a blast. And I think that was like also early days of progression into my love for downhill. So which was really cool. And that was kind of the falling in love element of the riding. And then basically from there, the downhill was the next love. So that was kind of where it transpired and how like it came about. So I got this downhill bike, I started dirt jumping on it, and like I built all these dirt jumps. I never had a dirt jump bike at the time. And also like if I wanted to get anywhere, it was also pretty far. Like my parents had to kind of, you know, leg me to wherever I was going. They had to like you know, put the bike in the car, and they would have to drive me because it was pretty far. Like I couldn't get there by myself, and I didn't have a license yet because obviously I wasn't even 18. I was like 14 or 15. So, you know, every time like shout out to them for the dedication of taking me everywhere as well, which is pretty cool. So anyway, and yeah, so raced for many years all over South Africa, which was, oh man, it's just a real, like I said, it's a calling, and it's just something that you can't really understand. It's a, you know, when you got that love for something, it's just a cool thing to be able to do. And anyway, along the journey of that, I started coaching, and I started coaching mountain bikes on the side. So I realized that, you know, now people are getting into it, and I'd been riding for like 5, 6, 7 years, and people are getting into mountain biking. And I was like, okay, well, it's a little bit of a way to give back, and it's also in a way that I can afford to make a bit of bucks while doing like what I love, kind of thing, you know. So I ended up starting to coach people, and, you know, just kind of helping out a little bit here and there. And I initially started coaching downhill, actually. So there was a couple of guys in the downhill scene, and, you know, I was like, well, that's where my love is, and I kind of teach in that direction, and started kind of coaching from there. And I think, you know, from there, that was quite cool as well. It was a very small market as well. I mean, if anyone knows the downhill market, it's not like there's not a lot of people that do downhill as well, which is pretty rad. And so like in South Africa, relatively small market, started with that kind of coaching. And then I moved around in South Africa a little bit as well, which is quite nice. So I moved from Joburg, I moved to Pietermaritzburg, actually for riding. I don't know if anyone knows, but Maritzburg had like a downhill World Cup there, and they've got like some of the most insane trails. They've got like world class level trails. Like it's actually insane. So the trails there were just ridiculous. I just knew I wanted to be mountain biking. So I ended up moving there. And that was, I'm trying to think now, probably like I'd say like 12 years ago, roughly. And I ended up moving down there, and also carried on with the coaching down there. So the whole way through my sort of riding career, I was coaching on the side and just kind of helping out. And it was initially downhill, and then started dabbling in, like I started riding more enduro, a little bit of the longer stuff, because I just enjoyed spending time in the bike. So, you know, which was also pretty rad, like just spending a lot of time like on the bike in Cascades, like helping people out riding there, and then like racing on the weekends. I was working at a bike shop, Greg Minnow Cycles, which was also super cool. So I was like really in it in the mountain biking scene as well. And from there, I think it's, you know, the coaching and stuff was something that I did throughout my life. I ended up moving down to Cape Town after that, and now I actually work in the bike industry as well, which is also super cool. So, but now I work as an engineer, so it's a kind of whole different aspect to working as opposed to working in a bike shop, where, you know, working in a bike shop is completely different, where you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with the ins and outs and helping people buy bikes. Where now I work at a company called C6 Components, also a rad company based out of Cape Town, South Africa. Guys make some insane parts. Like, just go check it out online. I'll link it down below afterwards. And like, also the progression of that company has just been insane. So, you know, we've had to, like, COVID forced us to do a lot of stuff in-house as well, which we never had exposure to as well. And you don't see a lot of South African companies manufacturing. A lot of overseas companies manufacture their mountain bike parts, but there's not so many people in South Africa that actually do it. I think it's pretty unique, which is kind of cool. And so yeah, sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked here. I'm checking the chat quickly. Welcome everybody that's here. Let's go. Hello. Oh, Indian supporters. Yeah, dude. Welcome. What's up? And I'm glad you guys are all out here. And anyway, so yeah, carrying on from that, probably about a year and a half ago, I decided to do a bunch of filming and with a friend, and I decided I wanted to make a mountain bike course. So I said, I'm now coaching. How do I coach on a larger scale to different people, and, you know, like, make it a lot more unique and interesting? Like, how do I reach a bigger network, basically? So I had the idea of making a mountain biking course. So what I did was I spent the better part of 6 months outlining, scripting, making basically a syllabus of mountain biking. And I put this thing together for myself and, like, outlined everything that made up mountain biking. And I kind of pieced it together, like, worked it back and forth into, like, if I had to relearn to mountain bike again, how would I do it so that I could do it as fast as possible? So, you know, like, learning the skills in order that you needed to do them, in order to, like, learn as fast as possible, basically. So that was the entire goal of the syllabus. And then my plan for after that was take this, video it, and put it up on a site. So initially it was Teachable. So I put a course out on Teachable, and then I put it onto Udemy. So I had a good buddy of mine at the time, Liam Snadden, who is still a legend, still a good mate of mine. And him and he had a camera, and he said, well, listen, dude, like, he'd be happy to help me film. And basically this became our project. So we outlined and we spent, like, a good amount of time actually making these videos. And, you know, from the beginning, we sort of worked our way through, and it was just, like, after work when we could, like, on the weekends, whenever we had a gap, I'd say to him, like, dude, could you make it happen today? Could we go do some filming? And he was like, yeah, no problem. And we just spent a bunch of time filming stuff as well. So we ended up filming and kind of learning, and, like, you know, it was a massive learning experience in the filming and the editing space, because initially he also was the editor. So he was the one that was going to be doing the editing. And because he was like, dude, I've got a bit of experience with a software called Premiere, which is a video editing service. And he's like, I'll put the videos together, And so we made this deal. So I was going to script and, like, kind of work on the scripts and stuff beforehand, and then he would edit and stuff afterwards. And so we filmed a bunch of the first ones. He had the footage and he put the first one together, but it took about 3 or 4 weeks. And because obviously now it's, you know, like, from his side, like, he's doing it as a favor to me. So I was like, okay, let's go. So I felt a bit bad for pressuring him. So I was like, okay, well, let me actually learn to edit myself. And, you know, then I can take the pressure off of him, and he can just help me film. So via that, I ended up learning to edit videos, which I had zero experience in. I had no idea what I was doing when I downloaded and was trying to figure out Premiere. And if any of you have used Premiere before, had any experience before, like, with it, it is it's quite an overwhelming thing to even see, let alone try and learn. But as with anything, there's courses for everything. So I jumped in and I did a course first, and I said, okay, well, at least this will give me a better understanding. And there's some guys that do on Udemy, on YouTube. I mean, you can learn anything nowadays. It's actually ridiculous, like, what you can learn if you have the want to learn. So But anyway, dived into this course, and throughout the progression of these videos, I started teaching myself how to edit. And so that was probably the better half of a year. And initially, what I would have done differently is when I'd started making all these videos was I did video by video, and I'd put them on. Like, I spent the better part of a year, and I wanted to get everything perfect before I launched. And so I didn't release basically anything. So nothing came on YouTube, nothing came, nothing went on to my website or anywhere like that. So I kind of spent like the better part of a year editing and making all these videos and just putting like huge amounts of effort in after hours to kind of get it done and get it right, and to make it perfect. And then I planned and I'd launched had my website going and everything. And then like one day I was like, boom, and I put it out there. And I think afterwards I was like, cool, I've now had this great idea of what I want to do and how I want to do it, put it all out there, waited forever to get feedback. I've now waited a year that I've lost on feedback. Whereas if I'd been uploading stuff the whole way through, I could have been getting better feedback for stuff, and learning a little bit more. Whereas now it was only in my mind. Like, I didn't have any feedback, for example, from you guys, like I do get now on YouTube, of people like telling me, if like stuff is bad, audio is bad, or this is bad, or this could be done better, or like the contrast of friends telling me stuff. Whereas like I waited and I put it all out there. So that was like kind of a big learning curve as well, but something I don't regret, because it gave me the contrast. And now I'm like, just put everything out there and just like figure it out on the fly. You're gonna get feedback. Like, nothing has to be like perfect in order to put it out there. It's rather volume, put stuff out there, and just then you're going to learn afterwards, kind of thing. So yeah, it was a big learning curve. But anyway, so I put all the stuff out there. And to backtrack a little bit to naming of the website, I thought when I built the syllabus of how to mountain bike, I said, okay, well, what am I going to name this thing? What am I going to name this, this whole endeavor? I had no idea what I was kind of like trying to do with it. And I was like, the gist of it was that I wanted to teach a person how to ride, how to get as good at mountain biking as quick as possible. How do you get from A to B as quick as possible? And therein came the name A to B. So it's basically, the gist is trying to teach people as fast as you can and trying to learn as fast as you can. And I was like going to be the platform that you'd use to do that. So the idea being, with this whole website and everything that I'd put together, would be, a person would do the course online, and then if they wanted, they could reach out and I could do a physical in-person coaching session with them. Or I had organized and I had coaches throughout South Africa. So I had a guy in Joburg, I had a guy in KZN, and I had one or two guys in Cape Town as well. And the idea was that people could come to me and say, well, I want to learn to mountain bike and I want to improve my mountain biking. So they would do the course online, theory at home, and then they would go and meet with an in-person coach to fine-tune what they've learned. So put this course out online, and I basically, from there, it's just kind of escalated a little bit, because I put all this stuff out online and it was like, okay, cool, put everything out, and now what? Now I have to market it, now I have to sell it, now I have to do all this sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, there's like actually a lot more that goes into this than I thought as well, to kind of drive and really enforce and make an idea work. And so I kind of took a step back and I said, well, I've just spent like a year, if not more, like a year and a half, like really pushing and diving into this subject and trying to make it like as good as possible. And I'm like, so what are my big learning curves? Like, I learned that I need to put stuff out more consistently to get better feedback in order to improve. Because if I look at my like early stuff that I did now, like in the course, I get the content, the quality is good, but like I wasn't comfortable on camera. Like I wasn't as comfortable like in front of the camera. I wasn't as comfortable editing. The audio could be better. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that like if I'd put it out sooner, could have been improved sooner. Whereas if you look at my content nowadays, it's a fair amount different to what it was then. It's taken like a completely different dynamic. So I think from there, it was a good learning experience because I got those lessons from there. And anyway, at the end of all of this, I learned that I really enjoyed making the videos, funny enough. So it was a very different form of expression and something I had zero like experience in, right? So I had no idea, like no experience in making videos, no experience in like how to make videos, like how do I even put it together, what any of this involves, like how to script, how to film, and all of this stuff that I've learned is also like skin of my pants, like kind of thing, like learning on the fly, which has also been pretty flippin' cool as well, because I think the best way to learn is by making mistakes, right? And I think a lot of the time, like even as I've gone now, like every time I put out a short or like more content or whatever it is, like I've learned a little bit from the time before. You know, so I'm like, my engineering brain goes, well, like, what are the analytics telling me? What is the data telling me? Like, what are the numbers show? Like, where is it different? Why is it different? Like, how do I break this down into like, you know, so it's quite cool because like everything you put out on YouTube or TikTok or like any sort of social media, like you get a huge amount of data back. Of how you can kind of analyze that as well and learn from that. So it's come a long way in terms of like learning as well and what you can and can't do. So the content now is just like, I'm starting to get to like a really happy place of where I'm like starting to produce stuff, and the learning curve has just been really interesting. And like, you know, in the last couple of months, I've done a bunch of courses of how to actually improve my content, how to make it more watchable, how to make it more engaging. And funny enough, I'm sure you guys know, but like my short form content is doing a lot better than my long form content. And I've also, it's one of those big questions of like, why is that content performing so much better than the other stuff? Anyway, I want to take a quick break. I just want to remind you guys that I'm going to be doing a giveaway for these rad gloves a little bit later on the stream. So LEATT has been super kind enough to give me their Grip R gloves. I don't know if you guys know these or even know of LEATT. LEATT is a rad company. I'm going to dive in. I'll tell you a little bit more about them just now. But these things are super, super cool. I'll break down a little bit more about them. These are their Grip R gloves. And like you see here, they are no pads on the inside. My favorite type of glove. I hate stuff that's got padding on the inside as well. These you can touch as well. So like if your phone gets sweaty, these things will actually, you can touch through the glove as well. So like there's a bit of moisture on your screen. You're actually still able to like run your phone and stuff like while you've got the glove on, which is a game changer because most of the time like companies just neglect that and you just end up like swiping your phone, end up taking off your glove and it's like a ball ache, and then you end up having to like take your glove off to use your phone, put your glove back on afterward, your hands all sweaty. So it's a nightmare. Anyway, I'm gonna give away a set of these just now on the live stream, so stick around. We'll figure out where you are and I'll send them to you if you win, so stick around. I'll do that just now. So back to point in case of making content. So like the short form media, like how and where it kind of is at the moment. You know, so the long form and the short form media in like the mountain bike space has been very interesting for me. And one of my kind of running theories on it is that like the long form space of how to mountain bike is already like a pretty tapped scene. So like a lot of people are already doing it. Like, you know, there's like, if you jump on YouTube, there's huge amounts of people, like there's Carl and April, they're like massive in the space. There's a couple other big platforms that like run how to mountain bike, like Neil Donahue, you know, the guys out in the UK. Like there's a lot of guys like that have been in the scene that are really good downhill racers as well. And like these guys know what it's about. And like they've done like a lot of how-to tutorials, and they've been doing it for like 10 plus years already. So the long form space is a space that's a pretty hard one to get into. And I think a lot of people will find that with YouTube as well. So via like almost a little bit of luck and just like, I think just kind of wanting to do something different, I like ended up doing a lot of my stuff in the short form space, which is like a minute or less, vertical orientation. And like, it's kind of worked really well, right? So one of the big things I attested to is that I think short form is also the way that like the way content is being consumed, like more people are steering in that direction. Like more people want to watch their stuff on their phones. Like nobody is sitting on a laptop to watch how-to tutorials or content anymore. Like a majority of people watch their content and consume their content off their phone. Like if I look at my analytics, like 95% of my content gets consumed off a phone. Like so people aren't watching so much on a laptop, on other stuff anymore. Like everyone's on their phone all day, every day. So short form content is like definitely picking up. And I think that's why, you know, the short form content, the short form space that I'm in is where it's at the moment. And I think that's a big attest to why also like we've got to 10,000 subs. It's one of the big reasons. And I've got you guys to thank for that, which is, like I say, insane that it's come this far, man. I'm super grateful that like everybody here is just, dude, like I said, a pipe dream, man. Like a couple months ago when I started putting like content onto YouTube, I was like, how do people do this? How are people getting like more than 100 subs? It is insane. Like it was straight up, like for me, I couldn't fathom it. Like I couldn't figure out how people were doing it. And again, coming back to the same lesson I learned earlier, but it was putting stuff out consistently gave me the knowledge of where to get to where I'm at now, right? Like if I had to look back, like I wouldn't have changed anything, because I had to put out all that like content that didn't work so great in order for me to get to where I'm going now. So, and now to realize like what's worked, what doesn't work, how the YouTube algorithm works, how all the social media algorithms work, what they want, what they don't want, what's engaging, what's not engaging, kind of thing, you know. So super fortunate that you guys are obviously enjoying my content. I'm super grateful and so happy to have you guys here. 10,000 subs, like I say, it's just been an absolute like mind blow, like how we got here. And I'm super excited to keep making more stuff, man. Like the more you guys subscribe, the more excited I get to make more content, man. Like I'm like kind of figuring out like what is the next step, like what like other content do I make. Like every week, like I spend huge amount of time. Like I don't know if you guys know this, but like when I make content, it takes me, like I calculated the first couple shorts that I was making, it was taking me 15 hours a week to make a 1-minute video, which is like, it's a lot of time, man. Like I would have to figure out, so the first thing that I'd have to do is script everything. So I physically write down what I want to say, what the shots I want to have, and then kind of outline, you know, that like everything that needs to go into that little 1-minute short. So, and that takes me probably 2 hours as well, because it's also something that like I've got to work on back and forth. Like I don't want to rush it either. So once I've got that, then I've got to organize, and I've got to say like, okay, well now I've got to film it, right? So now I also work a 9 to 5. So like the next step is kind of figuring out when am I going to find time to film this. So ideally on the weekend or potentially after work. So sometimes after work you run out of light, which is another big problem. And Cape Town as well is so windy. I don't know if you guys know this from wherever like everyone is, but it is so windy here. So the wind is another big factor because it messes up your audio. So something you don't think about until it's a problem. But yeah, so the wind is another big factor. The rain is also another big factor. Like, you know, I don't want to go shoot stuff in the rain because then you end up getting cold and it's like wet, and you end up like yeah, all your like tech of trying to like film stuff and whatnot is like also a bit of a nightmare. So big factors that go into that, like, and so that takes anywhere between like 2 to 4 hours of like filming as well. And then initially when I was like, I told you guys about my friend Liam earlier, and I was like, Liam put together the first video ever. And I was like, Liam, how did it take you so long to put together a video? Like, I didn't like understand. I'm like, surely you just like throw it in there, like into software, and it like just like boop, and like pops out and you get this miraculous video. And I was like, only when I did the first video myself, I was like, dude, I'm like, Liam, I'm sorry, bro. Like I was on your case, and I am sorry. Like this is insane. Like trying to figure out how to edit took me way longer. Like basically, if I film for an hour, it takes me 2 hours to edit. Like, and that's like basic editing. That's not like there's no fancy work in that. That's just like bulk raw like kind of thing. Like if I can spend like 4 hours on that if I want to really like dive deep into the editing. Like the editing software is insane, like what you can and can't do. So it was just like a big eye opener of like how much time went into editing videos as well, especially in the short form space. So yeah, so that was like another big factor that went in there. So it was like finding the time to script, finding the time to film, finding the time to edit, then having to rework it as well. Then I would spend a bunch of time, like it takes me another hour or 2 hours to voice over as well, to get all the voice work done correctly and happy like as well. Like obviously I don't want to put stuff out that I'm like not 100% happy with. So it's a lot of back and forth thing as well. So it's been a super interesting like learning curve to get these little videos kind of going as well. Like, and so now it's like where to sort of next with it, you know. So the current plan is what I've done is that whole syllabus that I initially sort of mapped out, right? So my current plan is to, again, work through that, but I'm going to do that in the short form space. And now it's going to be one, like, I'm doing like a shorter week. So to make sure that like appease all the algorithms, make sure that the algorithms are happy with me and they love it. So, you know, kind of doing that like one shorter week is kind of what where we're at the moment. And then I want to work through that syllabus. So I want to give you guys like everything that you need to know about how to mountain bike. So, you know, from like, again, from A to B, everything you need to know, like do it in the short form space, because I feel like that's the better market for me right now. That's a space that's working for me. I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to kind of ride that wave and kind of stick with it. And then we'll see what the next kind of like endeavor is down the line. I'm favoring heading into like the more humorous and relatable space, man. Like I feel like that's also a pretty cool space to be in. So, you know, there's this guys, normal mountain biker, Colorado kid, like these guys are doing like some pretty fun stuff, because it's like only limited by your imagination, right? Like these guys are doing stuff, if you can think of it and you can make it relatable in some sort of way and make it funny and interesting, like people will watch. Like And clearly these dudes are doing well. I don't know if you look at their numbers, but like these guys, like Joe just hit 1,000. Joe is Colorado kid. He just hit like 100,000 subs the other day. Normal mountain bike is like 300,000 plus. Like these guys are doing super well in their space as well. And their content has also just progressed and is super, super cool. So funny enough, like a couple months ago, I was fortunate enough to get on the phone with Joe. I reached out to him and I just said like, hey man, I'd love a bit of advice. And he ended up hopping on the call and I was like, oh, this dude's supposed to chat to me. Like what? I couldn't really believe it at first. And anyway, he gave me a bunch of advice and that was super cool to kind of know, like, you know, that it is doable, like what people are doing in the space. And, you know, that he's just actually is a rad dude that like loves to mountain bike. That's the kind of gist of what it is. And, so he gave me a lot of inspiration as well, because also of like where I'd like to steer my content as well, which is another important thing, you know, like I'm in the how-to space now, but down the line, there will be a time where I'm like, there's only so many how-to like mountain bike videos I can kind of do, right? So I think the next kind of progression and step is starting to dive and like delve into that like a little bit more relatability, a little bit more humorous space as well, which will be super, super cool. And also again, like the imagination is your only limit, and I kind of like that as well, because you know you can make stuff like, if you can make it relatable and you can think of it, like if you can bring it to life somehow, like it's there, people will probably watch it if you can make it funny. You know, it might be a complete flop and you get like 3 views, but hey, it might make sense to you and one other person, and that other person laughs, right? So that's also pretty cool. And I feel like nowadays, I don't know, I think it'll start steering that way. So we'll see. I think you guys will obviously be here for the ride as well, like all 10,000 plus of you now. So I think you guys will be seeing all the content I put out, which is super cool. So you guys will be along for the journey. You've made that commitment. Damn. But anyway, let's go. I want to have a look through the chat here and see who else is here. Here we got you, Jed Carlo Mano. What's up, dude? Simply MTB. Hey man, congrats on the 10K. Appreciate that, dude. Much appreciated. That really means a lot. From the Philippines. Damn. See, all over the show. I mean, that's insane, man. Like people watching from the Philippines. That's Jed. I really appreciate that you dropping in here today with us, bro. So yeah, guys, just a reminder, I'm going to do this, give these gloves away just now, but I think we're going to chat a little bit more nonsense first. West Coast Mountain Biker, what's up, dude? Also another YouTube channel based out of South Africa. Glad to see you on your supporting, much appreciated. So yeah, kind of steering it from there. So also, like, what do you guys ride? I don't know, what do you like? Dig to know a little bit more about you guys as well. I don't know how many of you guys actually, like, if you want to jump in on the chat and see if anybody rides there. What do you ride? Like, do you ride mountain bike? Do you ride cross country, marathon, downhill? Let me know what you guys actually ride, and I'd love to know and just kind of discuss as well. Like I said, I still can't believe you're from the Philippines. That's awesome, dude. That's super cool. And yeah, like I think the next kind of steps for the channel as well is consistency. So figuring out how I can do this like a bunch more. Like I'm enjoying making the content at the moment, but like I'd love to up the numbers a little bit and sort of, you know, putting out like 2 or 3 shorts a week. So that again comes into maybe not the how-to space, but the more relatable space. So I'll see once I start tapping into that, like if people start enjoying that, it'll be a nice kind of space to be in as well. And then, you know, I think that works well, because then I can also start incorporating brands into it pretty nicely down the line as well. Like I say, you know, I've been fortunate enough to be like working